Hi, my name is Rick Pruitt, and I want to share some basics on the guitar to hopefully get you started. If you have a guitar laying around, maybe it's time to start playing it. We're going to start today with what I call the rack, and what this is going to be a left-hand exercise where each finger is going to be placed on the string, on the frets. I'm going to use my thumb for plucking just to make it easy. I'm going to do one hand at a time as far as being technical. And what I want to do when I place my finger is to have it close to the fret. It doesn't have to be right on top of the fret, but you'll find that, especially the pinky, if I get it closer to the fret, I'll get a better tone. So the way the rack works is I'm making O's with my hand, and the guitar is in between there. So my thumb is going to be behind the guitar like this. And so here we go for the rack. So I'll do 2, then I'm going to go to the second string. Just do each of the strings. This is a good warm-up to get all your fingers working. Now it's real important when I'm doing this that I'm on my fingertips. So when you're doing this, you should be seeing your fingernail, not the end of your finger. So I'm on my fingertips. If you have really small hands or the guitar is too big for you, you can do the rack starting further up the neck where the frets get closer together. As much as possible, I want to keep my hands steady and just move my fingers a little bit at a time. Okay, that's it for our first exercise with the left hand. Now let's do something with the right hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pluck each of these 3 strings with these 3 fingers. So the ring finger's on the top string, middle finger here, index here, and the thumb is going to be here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pluck my thumb and then each of these fingers like this. I want to try to keep this part of my hand steady. I can do variations. I could come back the other way like this. Now I can put the 2 together like this. Later on, once I've learned some chords, I can do that same pattern and make a pretty good song. Like you'll probably recognize this one. I'm just doing that same pattern that I just showed you. One thing I haven't talked about yet, that I should have talked about at first, is how you hold the guitar. This is a classical guitar. I have this cool little pillow that's holding it up. But basically, when I'm holding the guitar, what I want to have happen is to have the guitar secure and my hands aren't part of that process of holding the guitar. I want to be able to move around the guitar and not be using the hands to hang onto the guitar. If you have a steel string guitar that has a much bigger body, you may end up putting it on this leg like this, but I still have my hands free in order to play. Now, let's talk about some chords. I have a chord progression that I would like to show you. It's 4 chords, and the second chord in the sequence is the first one we're going to start with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first finger and put it on the 5th string, counting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my second finger is going to be on the 4th string. So this chord is called an E minor chord. You'll notice I have my fingers, I'm on my fingertips and coming straight up so that the other strings are ringing. What's real common is people get their hand too flat and their fingers get in the way of the string. So here, our first chord, E minor. Now, I want to show you a G chord. It's a little bit more challenging. This first finger is going to stay on the same spot. The second finger is going to go to the 6th string on the 3rd fret. And this is the tricky part. I have to get my 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Why I like this chord progression is from chord to chord, one finger stays in the same spot. So here, when I go from the G to the E minor, I have to move this guy back a little bit, but it stays in the same location. So let's do that G again. 1st finger, 5th string, 2nd fret, 2nd finger on the 6th string, 3rd fret, 3rd finger on the 1st string, 3rd fret. So what I would like to do is just practice going between these two chords. And I'm doing the strings slowly, individually, to make sure that everyone is ringing nicely. Now, so from the G to the E minor, now I'm going to go to our 3rd chord. And what's going to happen is this finger, the 2nd finger, is going to stay on the 4th string. I call this the splits. We're going to a C chord. So what's going to happen is this 1st finger is going to come all the way up here to the 2nd string on the 1st fret. 3rd finger comes down here on the 5th string, 3rd fret. When I strum this chord, I'm only going to strum 5 strings. This one is not part of the chord, so it would sound like this. So once again, I'm going to practice going from one chord to the other. I'm going to go from E minor to the C chord. So far we have 3 chords. We're going to start with the G. Then I'm going to go to the E minor. Then the C chord. Now our 4th chord is going to be after the C. What's going to happen is our 1st finger stays in the same location, 2nd string, 1st fret, and then 2nd finger goes on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, 3rd finger goes on 1st string, 2nd fret. As you can see, this shape is a triangle. Call it the isosceles triangle chord. This is a D7. This chord is only 4 strings, so it would strum it like this. Okay? So from the C chord, we go to the D7. As you can see, that one finger is staying the same. Now the last thing we have to do is we're going to start the sequence over again. So from the D7, I'm going to go to the G. This is the tricky part. But what I can do, if you analyze it, if I take this chord and I slide it up, and I take these 2 fingers and move them over, then I have my G chord again. This is the trick, if I can do those at the same time. At first, that's going to be very difficult. The idea is to be able to move these 2 fingers as one, and to slide this up and keep touching the string, which helps me find the next location easier. So here's how it would look. I would say come down and then come over. Eventually, we'll be able to do it much faster. So we're back to the G. Let's try this again. So I have the G. My 1st finger is going to stay in the same spot, maybe slide back a little bit from my E minor. Now my middle finger stays the same. I'm going to do the splits, do a C chord, strum 5 strings. First finger stays the same, go to a D7. And back to my G. When you can do these 4 chords, you can play a ton of songs. There are a lot of songs from the late 50s and early 60s that use these chords. For example, this is Teen Angel. Just going to do 4 on each one. Now, if I do 2 strums on each of those chords, it becomes another song. Same chords. This is Blue Moon. Okay, now I can take those same chords and I can play a slightly different strumming pattern, and this will be Stand By Me. Okay, so I think I've given you some things to work on. Let's go through them again really quick. The first thing we did was the rack, where each finger is getting an opportunity to make a note. And I want to try to make sure that I have a nice, clean sound with each one of those. I will go down on all the strings. The other thing I gave you was some simple picking patterns using these 3 fingers and the thumb. Each finger has a job. This is like they're on the freeway. You got to stay in your lane. This is something you want to practice slow and make sure you try to get a nice, even sound with each pluck. The third thing we talked about was our chords. And so we have 4 chords. We have the G, the E minor, the C, and the D7. Now I do have one disclaimer about these chords. On the E minor, people usually use these 2 fingers on an E minor. I do too most of the time. But for this particular chord progression, I'm using these 2 fingers so that I can keep that common finger going from chord to chord. For this particular song, I'm doing my E minor with these 2 fingers, but it can also be done with these 2. Same token with the G, I could do it with these 2 fingers, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So I would say, if you're practicing the guitar, a good way to start is to do the rack and get your fingers warmed up and a little finger picking. You can start working on these chords. Now, if this lesson is for someone younger than 10, chords are incredibly difficult for young kids, and we don't start with chords with kids. We have a different program for them. If you don't have a guitar, I would suggest that you find a teacher and have them help you find a guitar. As a guitar teacher, I find a lot of people go out and buy a guitar, and it may not be the most suitable guitar to start with. This guitar has nylon strings. It's a classical guitar. It is an excellent choice as a first guitar because it's easier on your fingers. If you get a steel string guitar, it can be very hard on your fingers when you first start out. So I would keep that in mind, and I would definitely try to talk to a teacher and have them help you pick out a guitar so that you aren't fighting the guitar and you have a very, much happier and easier introduction to the guitar. I hope that helps you, and I suggest that you get your guitar out and start playing.